innovation, sustainable projects, creative processes, co-creation networks, vulnerable collectives, European programs, and public participation, efficiency in the use of energy, etc. Buzzwords and concepts tackled by Antonio López and Marta Lora Tamayo, both professors at UNED, with Mónica Nagore Santandreu, who is a consultant of social innovation in this new program in the framework of the Participatory Group, a collaboration network between UNED and the City Council of Madrid, with the intervention of 71 regional and local city councils and town halls to share good practices in public participation. Their website, theparticipatorygroup.org, contains their events and programs such as this one, hosted by Antonio López Peláez. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. At UNED, we are always by your side, by the side of those listening to us and joining us later, since all the programs are recorded. Today's show, in the framework of the Participatory Group, we train people, we disseminate ideas, analyze good practices. We are very lucky because today we want to analyze social innovation and the development of cities, but focusing especially on the European context, European programs that support innovative and exchange pilot projects. Today we are very fortunate, and I'm very happy in this host to count on Mónica Nagore, who is a consultant of social innovation, who has a very wide experience both in public administrations and private companies. She's directed many strategic participation plans. Thank you so much, Mónica, for being with us. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk about social innovation and participation. And later we will hear the heart and soul and engine of this show, who is Marta Lora Tamayo, with us as well today. You cannot see us because unfortunately we are not broadcasting this on TV. If you could see her, you'd see that she's wearing green, which is the institutional color of the UNED University. Good morning, Antonio. Thank you, Mónica, for being here. We're so happy to have you here. Please tell us more about your experience. Your first question, or our first question for you rather, and again, thank you for participating. What is the role of participation in European projects? Do you think it's a priority based on your experience? Yes, I'd say it's definitely a priority. Definitely it is. Participation in European projects is a priority for several fundamental reasons. Most of them have to do with the values and objectives that are key to the European Union, from democratic principles, the model of active participation of citizens in decision-making processes. The European Union has set the value of how important it is for stakeholders and citizens to participate, to guarantee that policies and projects reflect the aspirations of societies and populations, and also ensuring that projects are sustainable in the long term and reliable, effective, but also accountability, responsibility, transparency. Stakeholders and citizens need to be able to monitor the evolution of these projects so that resources are being used efficiently. So that's the role of social innovation, which is key for the values and principles of the European Union. Within participation, it guarantees the variety of knowledge and perspectives, and the idea behind it is to count on different voices throughout these projects so that we can reach more creative and efficient solutions. For me, there's a key element that is part of social innovation, which is it recognizes the expertise that stems from vulnerable collectives, and it gives them a key role to find solutions to the challenges that are arising. That is another novelty, another key trait of social innovation. And finally, I'd say it contributes to social cohesion. If we are engaging different groups and communities in these projects, what we are doing at the end of the day is reducing inequalities and contributing to that sense of belonging and collaboration, contribution. The evidence that this is a priority for European projects is that participation is one of the explicit requirements for most or many of the European programs like All Eyes on Europe, which is the flagship project for R&D, Erasmus Plus for training in universities for our youth, Europa Creativa or Creative Europe, Live for the environment, territorial cooperation projects, other initiatives that take place in European cities, URBA, which is a European project for sustainable urban development. So you've got a lot of evidence that participation is indeed a priority for the European Union because it is one of the main requirements. That's amazing, Monica. You described them and it seems something organic, natural, inherent to the DNA of the European Union. But in fact, it's been a very long process, tedious at times, to slowly, gradually transform our way of policy making to make it more comprehensive, more participatory. Some days ago, I was participating in a roundtable talking about innovation as well. And my first question when I was interviewing the speakers was, can you define and how would you define innovation? You are very technical. Your definition was very specific, very accurate. I've been note-taking because I found it fascinating. But when I asked them what innovation was, they would dwell on it for a long time. I wanted to be politically correct. I didn't want to correct them. But innovation is not everything. That wouldn't be innovation. So how is the European Union approaching this buzzword innovation that can sometimes be deprived of content? What are you referring to in this context? It's true that we all hear about innovation, but in practice, there's so much to do still. I've been working on the URBA project in cities. I come from the public sector, and I can tell you that there's a long path ahead of us. Once cities get involved in social innovation and start boosting their innovative projects, they are there to stay. It's got that capacity to engage people. And I've seen this in many cities. They've had the opportunity to try and test these social innovation projects, these new ways of policy making in a safe and controlled environment. Let me give you a specific example of how innovation takes place in the realm of public participation and in the framework of European projects. I'd say it's through different channels and tools or mechanisms. And obviously all of this is familiar to you. Co-creation and co-design. Co-creation processes, public participation should not only be there to answer a survey, but instead they should have a hands-on approach, get their hands dirty. That's what I mean. They should tell us not only what they think, but help us understand the problems we face and design the solutions to these. There are many participatory methodologies and co-design and co-creation tools. We see them increasingly, fortunately. And European projects actually foster participation through networks, associations. I'm talking about processes that are designed and assessed through multidisciplinary partnerships, multi-sectorial partnerships, and networks. And we've seen many projects where the different partners came from R&D, universities, academia, public administrations, but also private companies and NGOs or civil society organizations. Another mechanism that we've got is experiments and also pilot projects. These European projects often fund pilot projects, tests, trial and error, because we learn a lot from what's working and what isn't. This is basic and crucial for innovation in terms of participation too. The use of digital technology in terms of participation, it's increasingly present. We see AI in almost every project, taking that integrated role within social innovation to increase participation and improve engagement through machine learning and big data. Also, in smart platforms, chatbots, and AI help centers to answer questions, but also something that is very practical, which is automatization to make projects more accessible. We've got tools that can translate through machine translation, and we can therefore integrate people in projects that speak other languages. How fascinating to understand how this project is being articulated from Europe. We in public administrations were always looking to adapt to the EU regulations and legal context and their priorities. For those listening to us, I mean, most of them, they are either technicians in city councils or students. What good practices could you share with them? If you had to mention examples of projects focused on pilot projects, good practices, how do you transfer these good practices? Let me give you an example that might make it easier or clear for people to understand what the strategic lines are to transfer, to disseminate good practices. Let me talk to you about LABAD, which was funded by the European Urban Initiative, a European project funding pilot projects of cities within the local framework. They fund collaboration with local stakeholders, and in some cases, depending on the innovation to be implemented, sometimes they decide that they need an expert from another country, and that's fine, but most stakeholders are local. Let me give you an example that may make it clear what these strategic lines are for the transfer of good practices. I'm going to do it with Villa Watt. Villa Watt is a project that was funded by the European Urban Initiative. It's a European project funding pilot projects for cities within the local level. They fund collaboration with other local stakeholders, and yes, depending on the innovation being implemented, they might require the help of experts from other European projects. That's fine, but initially most stakeholders are local. Villa Watt was piloted for 3 years, funded through different experiments through this program, and then they accessed the Herbal project to transfer to other 3 cities, and they did because it had been a success. This transfer ended in 2023 to 3 cities in Belgium, Greece, and Hungary. Villa Watt focuses on creating an innovative governance model for the energy transition to take place, and it promotes efficiency in energy consumption and renewables. In this case, Villa Watt generated 3 key elements that were transferred later: the local energy currency, the energy community, it was called. And when it comes to disseminating knowledge, one of the key strategies was documenting the creation process for the local energy currency and the energy community or cooperative by creating case studies and good practices that were easy to access through online platforms. Another key element for this dissemination is creating a network of cities interested in the energy transition, some of which were part of the project, and they organized workshops with regards to the specific traits like the local energy currency, and they implemented pilot projects in these new cities. Each city had to work on their pilot project individually to implement these different elements, and they had constant communication of their experience, how it was going, through articles, conferences, practices with regards to promoting or sharing their lessons learned, outcomes. One of the other key elements for the transfer of good practices is the development of a sustainability plan, which includes looking for funding, additional funding to expand these initiatives at regional, national or European level, etc. I also consider that it's crucial, if you want to transfer good practices, is to have a good transfer model. In this case, we are very lucky because the urban program that, as I was saying before, supports urban sustainable development through the promotion of exchange and communication between cities, including networks of cities that want to transfer good practices to other cities. DIVER is the association that has been doing so for 15 years. For the past few years, they have developed a model of good practice transfer called Understand, Adapt and Reuse. And I'd like to quickly explain what it is about. The first part is, in the case of all cities, those receiving the transfer to have to dedicate resources to understand, to analyze the good practices that they want to receive or share. There's an exchange of knowledge between the cities transferring the knowledge and receiving the knowledge, and a thorough documentation of the good practice itself. One of the key parts of this stage of the model is to divide this good practice in transferable blocks of knowledge that make it easier in the upcoming stages for people to adapt these. The second stage is adapting the good practice to the new context, the cities receiving and analyzing the different blocks and how to tackle each one will have to assess their own context and start to get their local stakeholders engaged to adapt such processes to make sure that these solutions are relevant to their context and sustainable, because they have different local governance, populations. Understanding the local context is crucial for co-creation. They will develop plans of action with these citizens, the pilot projects for the last stage, the part of reuse. That's the part where the implementation of the good practice takes place. Another element of the last stage, which is also key, is monitoring and constant assessment. Continuous assessment takes place in a collaborative manner too. How? Well, they look at the implementation of the good practice in its adapted form, and they make sure that it is effective and sustainable at all time. They have feedback cycles that to contribute to the learning process. They finally document, study, and share outcomes, everything they've learned, to make scalability easier to other cities. The truth is that this program is one where the presence of Spanish cities is fundamental. In the last call, we've seen 10 networks of cities, and there's actually 8 Spanish cities. Getafe is a leader of its own network, for instance. I now live in the Balear Islands, and there are many regions that just don't know about these initiatives that are so important because they transform the way that we draft public policies. It's very important that people listening to us understand the horizon of European projects. It's not only about a call and winning the call, but what they entail in terms of the creation of a social innovation tissue, that innovative culture, participatory culture to improve, to dynamize our cities. Thank you so much, Monica. It's true that often information about these projects is too technical, too tedious, too complex, and yet in 25 minutes you've been very precise. Now, if you had, for those of us listening, if you had a final conclusion based on your experience with these kinds of projects, what would we have to do to be more successful? In our case, in the case of Spain, more than 50 cities in the participatory group. As part of this agreement with UNED and the City Council of Madrid, please share 2 last key messages to articulate projects. Well, for me, the 2 main conclusions are, first of all, the challenges that we face are increasingly difficult and important, and the solution to them can only be collective. Social innovation is the way to look for solutions that are more creative. Often, they are not 100% new and just adaptations of solutions that used to work before or that work elsewhere, but that's also innovation. That's the only path ahead of us. Thinking about the challenges that we are facing nowadays, which are truly complex, I'd like to invite anyone from any organization to work in a more collaborative manner for starters, and then to look outside, to look for fundraising projects to fund innovative or experimental pilot projects. Good. Thank you for the conclusion. We need to experiment, to make mistakes so that we can learn. We need to work as a team, as a network. That's why I love working with UNED. UNED has 54 centers outside our headquarters. Our students can sit their exams everywhere. We have a big bond, a strong bond between the different professors of different centers. And as well as in other universities, we work in a very dynamic, collaborative way. I think that it's fundamental, essential that we enjoy the participatory opportunities that everybody can find in their own institution. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Marta. And thank you, Alvaro, and the other technicians, making sure that every program is a success so that you can hear the miracle of radio from your smartphone. Thank you very much. Technicians Álvaro Flores and Ana Martín, we are also very grateful and very happy because you are able to listen to the episodes of the series Outlooks on Public Participation available to you on the participatorygroup.org website, on YouTube and unet.es.